So, questions from people about how this works at Northstar, or how it, the model or the theory, philosophy, then we'll get to the art.
For a while, I had really quirky kids, ADHD, Asperger's, and kind of hard to be with sometimes, kind of hard to function on their own sometimes, right? Even when I had them home and gave them options to do that, we kind of end up on our phones all day, or unless I'm on them. So are there kids like that there, and how do they thrive in this model?
I think, is that your question?
You're good.
I think part of that was the initial, I like to call it the adjustment period of, you kind of realize that you don't have to do anything, and I think those people are the ones who take advantage of that and kind of just do what they want. But from my personal experience and being at Northstar long enough to see other people do it, most of those people usually end up eventually getting bored of just sitting there and doing whatever, and will pursue some academics or some kind of creativity, art stuff on their own. I think it's just taking the time to settle in and figure out what your interests are.
You guys have a follow-up?
Sure. Anybody else want to answer that though, or I'll answer it too.
Yeah.
About
Social part.
yeah.
Social
I mean, it's a hard case. You know, kids on the autism spectrum. It's a hard case. We do well by many of those youth. We've had plenty. We have currently several members with Asperger's diagnosed, and you know, it partly comes down to having a safe environment for them to just practice socializing in at their pace, or their way. They can sit and talk to people or not. And I'm not trying to make them or get them to do anything. But they do have an advisor. There's somebody saying, so is there any one thing in life you really like doing? Is it cards? Is it whatever? And you know, trying to offer like one adult relationship in a one-on-one or one group class or one activity, and try to get, you know, at least some connection, right? Sometimes that fails. If we don't have any adult connection and the kid comes and they don't really connect with other kids, and they come for a few months and they stop coming because it doesn't work. That can happen, it does happen. But our batting average is pretty good, and it's better a lot of times in school, right? You know, because we have the flexibility, the luxury of the fact of saying, you don't have to go to class. You could go outside right now. You can go wherever you want. So you can spend as long as you want in that. So by creating a system that allows us to say that, we have a head start, right? And so socially, it depends what
I'm just going to tell them, they tend to be really annoying guys sometimes. They're like little gnats, so they're really like my oldest son who's through school now, but is very kind of edgy, you know, and he blurts out stuff. And so what happens in the social community is he gets pushed out. And so how do you guys even have to deal with that? Does that come up? How do you guys deal with guys who are kind of maybe not so easy to be with?
I am one of those people.
I know that. I get that. Yeah.
I just, my perspective, just from kind of being at Northstar, and also I spent a lot of time kind of observing the social scene at Northstar for every year to really want to join. But I think it's really different from like anywhere else I've ever been. It's such a welcoming community. And I mean, really, like, I think there's just really something really special about it. I think part of it is the fact that it's like, there's a pretty wide range of ages. So, you know, in school, everything is so segregated with, you know, you're only hanging out with people who are your age, and there's all this, like, all these cliques and stuff like that. And, like, there are, like, friend groups at Northstar, obviously, and stuff like that. But it's, I don't know, I think the fact that, you know, you get to interact with kids who are a lot older than you and a lot younger than you, it just makes it, it's a totally different environment than like anywhere else I've ever been. And I thought it was, I think everyone is very, very mature in a certain way, in that they can be respectful. And people are, like, I think, exceptionally patient at Northstar, I guess. That's kind of the impression that I got being there. Yeah, absolutely.
You can't be annoying. I mean, you can be, but you're called on it, and we ask you to stop. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to haul in your parents and say you can't come back if we have this parent meeting. And we're going to say it's really hard for this kid to be here. People are trying to be nice and manage it, but you know, you have to stop. When people ask you to stop, you have to stop.
So there's, you know, and this is the challenge. So I also lead a group of 800 moms now of these kids. Okay, and they are, some of them can't stop. That is their disability. Right? Their behavior and their ability to stop that is their disability. That's not your case, or maybe, but you don't know until they get in.
I mean, then they can't be Northstar.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
you know, but
Good.
Yeah. Can you talk about the tutorials and tell me a little bit more about those, where that's coming from?
Ken, can you rephrase the question?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm
Hear what the questions are?
No, it's okay, go ahead.
I'm asking about the tutorials,
Okay, thank
where
you.
they're coming from.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody can hear the questions
So,
that they're
I
responding
get
I'm
that.
gonna send it to Eva. Eva, can you tell us maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of the tutorials you had this year and how they got started?
Okay. So with the tutorials, I'm not really totally sure how I decided to do them. I sort of just like was thinking, oh, what do I want to learn more about? And one of my favorite tutorials throughout the year was writing. So there's a lot of staff at Northstar. There's 8 core staff and then lots of volunteers. And they all have certain specialties or things that they can help you with. So my tutorial was, they're mostly one-on-ones. So I had Dan, who is a really cool AmeriCorps person that works at Northstar. And he taught me writing throughout the year. So we would meet once a week and for about an hour. And it was the first classes or tutorials very strange for me because he asked me, what do you want to write about? And I never really had that such a creative option of what do I want to write about. I was like, there wasn't any prompt. And of course, if I had wanted a prompt, he would have given me that and totally would have done whatever I wanted to do. So we ended up I wrote a couple short stories throughout the year, and we did some poetry, and I just loved that tutorial. And if it was like going down a path I didn't like, then I could just do something else. I could say to him at any point, you know, I'm not like really feeling this story. And yes, he would try to encourage me to keep going, but then if I was like, no, I really don't want to do it, we would just start something else. And that's so great. And there was no grading me. He definitely gave me like constructive criticism and would help me along and taught me so much. But there was never like any pressure for the tutorial to be. It was really like we were talking, and I feel like that's a lot of the tutorials in classes. It's not so much like a teacher and a student. It's like 2 people that both have different opinions, and they're sharing them, and they're both learning from different things. And that was probably my favorite tutorial. I also had an ecology tutorial where me and another man would walk around. We walked around the area, and I learned all about the climate and everything about Massachusetts that I had no idea of because I had just moved from California. And I had one other. Wait, did I have another? No, I didn't have another tutorial. Yeah.
Well, Laura, do you want to say a word about tutorials?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, like I said before, you can get a tutorial on pretty much anything you want, which is pretty amazing. So that was like one of my favorite parts of being at Northstar was I could pretty much think of anything I wanted to learn about, and I could find someone to help me with it. And what's really nice about that is a lot of times, like for physics, for example, what that looked like for me was I met with a student from Hampshire College, and he would come every week, and we'd meet together, and we'd read books together. So we'd read, you know, Stephen Hawking or Richard Feynman, and we'd just go through these physics books, and it felt, just like you said, it was very much like talking and kind of trying to understand the concepts together. And there wasn't like that hierarchy where you feel like, you know, you're with like an authority figure. It was really like we're working through the material together. A lot of times we're kind of like learning together, especially for like these really difficult physics concepts. It was kind of like a, you know, a journey for both of us. And it was just really cool. And like I said before too, meeting with Ken, and also I did a philosophy tutorial with John Sprague, who's one of the core staff at Northstar. It was just such a difference in kind of feeling like you're talking to someone who really respects you and really actually takes your opinions really seriously and doesn't think you're naive just because you're young. You know, someone who's really like interested to hear what you have to say. And I kind of experienced that with all of my tutorials. But yeah, it's just, I really enjoyed group classes at Northstar too, but there's something that's I think really cool about kind of being able to pick anything you can think of and then like learn it with someone else.
Do you want to get in there too, Tristan? You don't have to, tutorials.
I took a math tutorial.
Was it helpful?
Yes, we were doing some practice stuff for the high school equivalency test, and then the year before, me and another tutor went through the entire science section of the GED prep book, and I took a practice test and got an 86.
And some of the tutorials are guitar lessons, or voice lessons, or sewing. I mean, you know, it's like there's a lot of kids who want to learn Korean, and sometimes we don't have anybody in the team that knows Korean. But then, for example, yesterday there was a parent who I just learned who's Korean, who just stepped back from her very full-time overloaded job, and she was like, "Oh, next year I'm going to have so much time because I'm inspired by my kid," and she's rearranging her work schedule. Like, "Oh, you want to come hang out at Northstar one morning a week? You know, we have a bunch of kids for you, right?" So, you know, there's by having a lot of people around, you know, you can come up with stuff, right? But some of the tutorials are remedial or working on weaknesses, you know, kids want to do in private. But a lot of them are the kind of things that you would want someone to help you with, and you don't necessarily want a group on it, right? It's simple enough. I'll go back there.
With this one to Loudoun County is starting to become heavily Latino community. You make accommodations, for students whose first language isn't English.
We at Northstar have had very few kids whose first language is not English. So, not at Northstar.
Not Northstar.
Not at Northstar. The one of our
And we have done that before. We had the girls in Bulgaria.
yeah,
Yeah, so
we still do.
yeah, so we have more information.
The occasionally yes.
Okay.
The model holds, in my opinion, because the support would be different. The person who was co-director or program director for 12 years left and started her own center in Holyoke, Massachusetts, which is heavily Puerto Rican, and she's been very inclusive of Spanish-speaking students there. And she has 2 people on staff who are first language Spanish-speaking adults, and you know, it's a whole deliberate approach in the Holyoke Center to be supporting Spanish-speaking children to have an alternative to the Holyoke public school system. Where we live, that just hasn't been the demand or our experience. But there was another question. I went over somebody here.
Yeah. So you have a class or tutorial like chemistry, and so there's like math that you need to know to be able to understand how chemistry works. Would you learn that in like the chemistry tutorial, or would you have to do the different?
That's a fine question. Did you hear? Did she say if you did a chemistry tutorial and you did no math, that you had no math to do chemistry, would you have a separate math tutorial too? And I'm going to answer this for a second, and then I'll let you guys, because I have a good story for this one. The answer is that however suits you. You can have 2 tutorials, I don't care. You know, ask for 2 tutorials, we'll schedule 2 tutorials. Have a chemistry, have a math, see if we can. Or not, or just tell us like chemistry guy, wait, slow down, or woman, slow down, we gotta do the math first today, right? It's up to you. Or schedule 2 hours with the same person a week, I don't care. You know, it's that, it's a big deal. But Jonah Meyer was a kid who came to Northstar at 13 because he couldn't sit still in school, and it was crazy. 43 days of 6th grade, they were telling him to stay home, you don't need to come here. And he came to Northstar and started rock climbing, and he's currently today in Norway rock climbing at 22. And again, it's a good outcome. But the point of the story is he didn't do math or writing at the time, and when his parents were biggest concern about homeschooling. And at 16, he decided he wanted to do chemistry, and he signed up for a chemistry class at UMass. And he said, I just did the math while I was doing the chemistry. I really wanted to learn the chemistry, so we sort of figured it out. I got an A. I took chemistry too. Got an A in there too. I can't explain it. I just did it. Like, Jonah, that's really useless to the poor person asking the question. But that's what Jonah says. He says, I just did it. How did he figure out how to multiply and figure out all those conversions and stuff? I don't know. You'd have to ask him. but he's cross climbing. By the way, he went and did the outdoor leadership program, which is a one-year certificate at Greenfield Community College, and then he got employed by the state of Connecticut, working with troubled kids out in the woods. And for 3 years, he did that with people who were actually older than him. You know, it was pretty fun. You know. Anyway, that's not a great answer. How would someone who really wants a chemistry tutorial, doesn't know math, handle that? What would be your answer? Go for it.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I did a lot of science tutorials at Northstar and math tutorials as well. And at one point I did have, I had a math tutorial, and then I had a separate tutorial where I was doing like chemistry and stuff like that. But in general, I would say the tutorials are really fluid. So if you're working on chemistry and you're realizing like, I think there's a math background that I need here that I don't have, a lot of times the person you're working with can just help you with that. Because a lot of times it is kind of like that experience of like learning together, so they can help you kind of understand the material. But like I had this, one of my favorite tutorials was with a Hampshire College student, the one I was talking about before. And I honestly don't even remember what the tutorial was originally supposed to be. It was a science tutorial, but we did physics, we did biology, we read, we would talk about music and stuff. It was just very fluid. So there's not really the, in my experience, there's not really the same subject boundaries that you would, experience in a school system. It's much more based on your interest. So if you're working on something and then you're finding this aspect really challenging, but it's not technically chemistry, you can very much go in that direction.
You want to say something about it?
Yeah. So oftentimes in my math tutorial, to solve a problem, we would have to do a different kind of math that I hadn't really touched on yet. And so my tutor would just take like a detour and take the time to explain to me this other thing with some of our tutorial time. And then after that, we would continue on with our normal tutorial. So just like a slight deviation.
Yeah. And I don't want to make light of basic knowledge. Like if you don't know your times tables, it's going to be really hard. You're going to have to memorize your times tables at some point. And if you can't spell and write, it's going to be hard to do some of these things. Like some basic skills matter. But choosing when you want to work on that and then deciding now, okay, I'll learn my times tables finally. If some 15-year-old has refused to learn his or her times tables till then, how long is it going to take a kid who finally wants, if you look at the 10 by 10 or 12 by 12, there's only like 7 of them that aren't intuitive anyway. And like, so memorize them then. Like, okay, you win. You didn't have to now, but now you want to. And so there's some basic skills that really could be roadblocks and obstacles if you don't have them. So, it's not about making light of you can get away with not knowing them. It's just that when you want to learn them, like all the math up to algebra doesn't take that long to learn if you want to learn it. All the decimal fraction percents, like get into the, that's not super complicated stuff. It's harder if you're resisting it, actively resisting it. And they can't make me learn it, I'm not going to learn it. I already know that's a lot of energy and you're going to win. And so when you drop that, you just, oh, all right, never mind, what was it I was supposed to learn? It doesn't take but a few, All right, yes.
So, what are some of the negatives or complaints that you hear about when people decide to leave Northstar? Aside from what the lady said, what are some of the complaints that you get?
What are the complaints?
The program's perfect, so
yeah.
what kind of complaints do you get?
When kids go back to school, or they choose to homeschool independently, 13, 14, 15, it's just because this club isn't the thing they want. They don't, they don't connect with kids, they don't connect with adults. It's money, it's effort, it's time. You join a gym and you don't really go to it, and you don't connect with the people there, and you just buy your shoes and run or ride a bike. Why you pay money to join a club if you're not going to go there? There are kids who really want to be part of 700 kids in a high school in Ookla. We have 70. It's not school. There are kids who really, really want grades and they never come to peace with themselves or about am I doing enough? Am I really smart? I don't believe it without an A from some external person. Or there's teens and parents who can't come to peace in the family. It's the same reason people stop homeschooling too, right? Honestly, surprisingly, this is harder for a lot of families than school. It's harder for kids than school. Because like self-employment can be harder and having a crappy job. People sometimes think we're offering kids the easy way out. You don't like school, just quit it and just, free pass. And it's really not that at all, right? And so it doesn't suit everybody. It's like a lot of times people who try to start their own businesses be like, never mind, can I have my job back? All this marketing and the 10 beats, I can't do it, right? So there's that kind of thing. But the staff are mostly concerned about what happens when the reason is because they were there for 6 or 8 months and they never connected with any one of us. There was no significant one-on-one. They weren't connected to any tutor, any staff, any class. The advisory meetings were cursory, and they just floated away because they never got integrated, right? That's where we feel strong, like, oh, shoot, right? All those other reasons is hard, my kids sniff Northstar, and I'm not touching nothing but a 10-foot pole, right? And I wouldn't have, if someone had offered me Northstar when I was that age, I wouldn't. There's no way. So, a lot of it you take with a grain of salt. Or, we're not trying. I long ago, stepped away from the concept that nobody should go to school. We're trying to talk everybody out of school, and everybody's homeschool, and it's just the better way. That's not it at all. The idea is, it's not that nobody should go to school, it's that nobody needs to go to school. Anybody could try life without school. We want to help anybody try this lifestyle. Anybody who wants to try it, we'll help them try it. You don't want to try it, that's fine, right? And that's a different tone, all right? You want to say anything else about kids who've been there and left? And some of the complaints or any negatives? I don't know. It can be too loud. It's a group. Some people don't like each other. I don't know. It's messy sometimes. It's loud. Or not. Or all the people seem to think one way and they're all annoying and they want you to think that way. I don't know. It's teenager. It's not everybody wants to be part of this scene. It's fair enough. There was a question over here, I think. Yes, sir?
I have children that thrive in school.
Mm-hmm.
I have a child that doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And you described to other examples very closely one of my children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to find a way to make her successful.
Right.
Because the standard way is not, standard way is not working for her.
Right.
She knows she has to be committed. She knows she can do anything in life except play in the NFL or in the NBA.
Right.
And I have repeatedly told her that she can do anything else in life. How do you know when she's done with it? Because what I pictured when I first heard about your program is, did you ever see the movie Mame? I pictured, if you haven't, you need to see Mame with Rosalind Russell. She puts this kid, her nephew, into school with no standards, no structure, and when the guardian comes, the official guardian comes in to see what's going on in the school, they're sitting naked on the floor, finger painting, as with the teacher. So how do we measure how our children will learn, and then when the time comes that they're done versus graduating with a diploma, how do we measure that?
So I'm going to challenge the premise. Sorry, it's a very heartfelt question. I hope everybody can hear that well enough. It's a very personal question about his daughter. I don't think I'm challenging the premise you started with, which is you want to make your daughter successful.
I want to